با درود تبریک روز جهانی کارگر به شما و همه کارگران جهان و ایران. دوستم فهیمه صادقی و من احسان ضمن خوشامدگویی به شما عزیزان از کمیته برگزاری اول ماهمه متشکریم که ما را به عنوان مجری انتخاب کردند و همچنین از اتحادیه یونیفور لوکال 111 نیتن، کارلوس و گیبن سپاسگزاریم که به درخواست ما جواب مثبت دادند و سالن رو در اختیار ما گذاشتن و همچنین با ما در جهت همبستگی طبقاتی کارگران در مراسم روز جهانی کارگر همکاری میکنن. ابتدا ازتون خواهش میکنم تلفنتون رو ارتعاش بذارید یا خاموش بکنید، ممنون میشیم. و برنامه امشب طوری که اطلاع دارید در دو بخش هست. اول سخنرانی و خواندن پیام‌های همبستگی از تشکل‌های مستقل از ایران، از خارج و از فعالین کارگری و سپس 15 دقیقه استراحت داریم و بعد از آن جشن همبستگی طبقاتی کارگر در روز جهانی کارگر که شامل موزیک دیجی و رقص و پایکوبی هستش. متشکرم.
Hi everyone, happy International Workers' Day. Today, speeches and solidarity messages are going to be in two languages, Farsi and English. My name is Seyced and I'm a member of QP15 and also PCGU. And I'm honored to be your host tonight, and I appreciate Mayday Committee and UNIFOR Local 111, Nathan, Carlos, and Gavin for letting us to use Union Hall to celebrate the International Workers' Day today. Tonight, the celebration has two parts. One part is speeches and solidarity messages, and second part is music, dance, and food. I hope you enjoy tonight. Thank you. Labor Day has its origins in the labor union movement, specifically for 8 hours day movement, which advocate 8 hours of work, 8 hours for recreation, and 8 hours for rest. This movement first started in April 1856 in Australia as 8 hours, and later on in May 1886, labor demonstration at Hammer in Chicago peacefully rally in support of workers striking for 8 hours working day. But this rally ended up with arresting and killing workers by police. The Hammer affair is generally considered significant as the origin of International May Day. May 1st celebrated in most countries as International Workers' Day except in US and Canada.
رفقا طوری که میدونید اولین میه که رفیق شاهرخ زمانی در بین ما نیست. سعی میکنیم مراسم رو با اسم شاهرخ، با اسم و یاد شاهرخ شروع کنیم. اولین ماه می و روز جهانی طبقاتی کارگری است که شاهرخ کارگر مبارز کمونیست در بین ما نیست. یادش گرامی، راهش پر رهرو، آرمانش زنده باد. شاهرخ زمانی با آرمانی بزرگ و سوسیالیستی که همانا رفاه اقتصادی، اجتماعی و مساوی برای همگان، سازماندهی کارگران و تلاش برای ایجاد تشکل‌های مستقل کارگری با مقاومت انقلابی در ساختار سرکوب زندان در یک رسم نابرابر با جمهوری سرمایه‌داری اسلامی به دست جلادان کشته شد و جایگاه ویژه‌ای برای خودش در جنبش طبقه کارگر در تاریخ مبارزات کارگری ایران و نظام سرمایه‌داری باز کرد. یادش گرامی، به احترامش 1 دقیقه سکوت می‌کنیم.
We are talking about Shahrukh Zamani, one of the labor activists. He just recently died in prison. They killed him actually. And so we're going to have 1 minute silence for him. So we would like to invite our first speaker, Mrs. Virginia Labansky. She is a women's advocate for UNIFOR Local 111. And tonight she's going to talk about barriers force for women in the workplace. Welcome.
Good evening. I love what I do. I meet really interesting people every day. I'm often the first person they see in the morning, and sometimes the last one they speak to at night. I greet them with a smile, and I wish them a good day. If they're rushing, I wait for them. Sometimes they tell me their stories, their successes, their hopes, and their fears. They sometimes ask my advice. They trust me. I get them to work and help them run errands. I make sure they get home safe when they've had too much to drink. They feel comfortable and safe with me. I take pride in what I do and the service I provide. I am one of 14% of metropolitan Vancouver bus drivers who are women. 14%. That means there's over 6 times as many male drivers as female drivers. If this is such a great profession, why is the percentage of female drivers so low? I mean, it has great benefits, it pays pretty well, and there's lots of flexibility in the working hours. It's honest, meaningful work. So why aren't women applying for and working in this profession? On International Workers' Day, we should be celebrating the achievements of all workers worldwide. Unfortunately, there are still many women who, for various reasons, are underrepresented in the modern workplace, like in the transportation sector, which I work in. Despite numerous reports, statistics, and attempts to attract women into non-traditional professions, such as driving a bus, the percentage of women pursuing these types of careers is still abysmally low. More women should have good careers, whether as members of parliament or as bus drivers. We're beyond debate about this. When asked to justify equitable female participation, our new Prime Minister said simply, because it's 2015. Well, it's 2016 now. While many barriers were identified in my research, the one that disturbed me the most was this. It appears that old ideals and philosophies about gender roles that may have been applicable 40 or 50 years ago are still being applied to today's professional career world. These old ideologies, in many cases, are what are keeping women from pursuing more modern careers. What I'm talking about is gender stereotyping. Women who work in transit understand and deal with gender stereotyping on 2 levels. Firstly, driving a bus is not traditionally seen as women's work. I admit it's somewhat comical to see a passenger board the bus and say, "Good morning, sir. Look up and see it's me." At that point, they blush, apologize, "Ma'am" or "Madam Bus Lady," scurry away and find a seat. I have to laugh. But it's an example of this deeper issue of pigeonholing genders into certain careers. Secondly, prejudices still exist and continue to be reinforced about what women can and can't do. These judgments can be deeply embedded in society, especially in male-centric sectors like transportation. The traditional roles of women are still prevalent and involve childbearing, motherhood, and keeping the home. This stereotype may influence those who do the hiring. The expectation still remains, due to home and family obligations, women cannot be relied upon to show up for work every day. This may lead employers to choose a male candidate over a female candidate. Additionally, there is an expectation that young women will marry and have children. While it's true, women still do the childbearing in the family, the truth is that in Vancouver, the cost of living, the cost of owning a home, the cost of renting a home with a family are so prohibitive that it takes 2 incomes to support a family. As a result of these old values and prejudices, women are often not being offered the same opportunities as men. Because job postings, like those for transit, are aimed at and worded to attract men, women haven't considered them, perhaps mistakenly believing that the requirements of the job may be too physically demanding, or that the hours are not conducive to family life. Women haven't been getting the right information in order to consider some career opportunities to be open to them. Furthermore, in many skilled trade workplaces where men are resistant to female employment, women often feel isolated and ostracized by their male co-workers and even by the public. Men sometimes feel unjustly threatened by the presence of women taking their jobs. This makes for a difficult work culture where women may face cruel comments, bullying, and even sexual harassment at work. I have to tell you a story another transit operator shared with me. This is great. Pardon me. The incident happened while she was a bus driver in Edmonton. It was a typical cold, snowy Sunday evening. She pulled into a bus stop to pick up the gentleman standing there. She opened the door and greeted him. He looked up at her and exclaimed, "You're a woman. I'll get the next one." To which she replied, "Suit yourself." She closed the door and knowingly smiled to herself. An hour later, she returned to the same bus stop to find the man still waiting for the bus. It was 1 hour service, and she was the only bus driver on it. The freezing man exclaimed, "You again? I'll call a cab." She closed the door and drove away. Look, while this story is funny, it sends a strong message about gender stereotyping. The fact is, women drive at least as well as men. In fact, insurance rates are cheaper for women because they cause fewer accidents. It's frustrating that gender stereotypes incorrectly frame women as less capable. Another byproduct of these old values is that often women lack the support and understanding of close family members who don't understand the benefits of more progressive careers. Women are often discouraged and led to other careers by their well-intentioned family and friends. In so doing, these women are often pointed in the direction of poorly paid, insecure jobs in retail, hospitality, and food service sectors with no hope of advancement. With so much attention in the media about assaults on drivers, the threat of violence has kept many women from considering driving a bus. Thankfully, through the efforts of advocates for the safety of bus drivers like UNIFOR and Nathan Woods, president of Bus Drivers Local 111, Ottawa has passed legislation protecting drivers and demanding prosecution of those who perpetrate violence against drivers and passengers. Additionally, protective barriers are currently being tested for use in metropolitan Vancouver buses. Perhaps by installing barriers, this may actually remove a barrier for women. Finally, having identified the barriers, I sought to find ways in which we as family, friends, co-workers, and most importantly as a community, can actively work together to break down gender stereotypes and prejudices about women. If I can leave you with one lasting message tonight, let it be this. Let's work together to advocate for and participate in supporting the women in our lives. Speaking to our daughters, our nieces, sisters, and other women in our family and community to encourage them to think and consider traditions outside traditional occupations. We need to let them know that they can be and do so much. Through community outreach, we can advocate for women within our communities, meeting places, and events like this. We need to challenge conventional thinking by encouraging the women in our lives to investigate all options when choosing a career path, by educating both women and men on how to work together with respect towards each other, both as individuals and as professionals. We can tear down these walls that divide us and create a stronger community. It's a career, not a job. By promoting the fact that these careers offer a variety of opportunities for advancement, along with great benefits, we can help women to understand the long-term opportunities available in careers like transportation. So many other doors can be opened up to be pursued. The key is that if we don't challenge these old ideologies, stereotypes, and conventions, they will continue to drive the way we view both men's and women's roles in the workplace, as well as in society at large, and keep us from seizing valuable opportunities. Opportunities for growth as individuals and as a global community. Let's embrace the unconventional and the non-traditional as we move forward. At the end of the day, driving a bus is not for everyone. What is important is that we open our minds to new possibilities. I'd like to finish with a story. I was a new bus driver, having driven for barely a year in downtown Vancouver. I had just transferred to the North Vancouver Transit Depot, so that as a single mom, I had 2 small kids, I could be closer to home. I walked into the depot and was immediately greeted by several male transit operators there. They welcomed me with care and respect. There was a senior driver sitting across from where I was standing. He took the time to make sure I was okay and knew where everything was. A few weeks later, he rode my bus to get to work. We spoke briefly, and again, he made sure that I was adjusting to the new depot. He was a gentleman in every way. That man is now my husband. It just goes to show that you never know what opportunities await you until you dare to step outside your comfort zone. Thank you.
Now I would like to read a letter from Ismail Abdi and Jafar Azimzadeh. Jafar Azimzadeh and Ismail Abdi, they wrote a letter to the Confederation of International Workers Union, called ITUC, and also to International Teachers Union, which is EI. They say in their letter, nowadays it should be obvious to any fair-minded and decent individual in Iran that millions of workers, teachers, and other hardworking people are faced with back-breaking financial situation and have been continuously deprived of their most basic human rights. These conditions include below poverty line wages and salaries, late payment of their earning, the absence of job security with temporary contract, and unconditional acceptance the employer's term of employment. A significant number of highly educated teachers are forced to accept teaching contracts according to which they are paid on hourly basis or conditional terms with no employment insurance at any below poverty line salaries. Meanwhile, the number of private schools are on rise and public education for all is vanishing gradually. This is what we are seeing in Canada too. As you know, like $26 million Canadian government are cutting the budget of Vancouver School Board, which ending to close on lots of schools. Social security coffers are being pillaged by the authorities, and workers' independent unions are continuously under attack. At the same time, subsidies on basic goods such as bread, water, gas, dairy products, and etc. have been removed. These are just a short list of injustices that working people and teachers are facing today. Workers and teachers who make up a significant portion of the Iranian population are under such a pressure that even working 12 to 18 hours does not cover to bring food to their tables. Therefore, they are forced to work second and third jobs to keep a mere subsistence level lives. The government's response to this situation have been increasingly suppression of working class and teachers' protests and further pillaging of what is rightfully theirs. Such policies have led to an official circular of the prohibition of strikes by the judiciary to many institutions with high concentration of workers after the government of President Rouhani took office. The condition of this suppression of any type of dissent has spread to even peaceful gathering of workers demanding their basic rights in the workplace, which has led to the incarnation of many of us workers in prison system of the country. They have accused us of being complicit in attempts at endangering the national security of the country, for which we have been sentenced to long prison terms and persistently serving those sentences in various Iranian prisons. We are like thousands of other protesters, workers, and teachers have done nothing but defend what is rightfully ours, and our activities have all been totally transparent and have all taken place in unions and other independent workers' organizations. Our activities have been legal and our demands totally legitimate, such as writing letters to officials in charge of workers' affairs and collecting signatures demanding indeed and below poverty line wages, and demands for our independent unions and activities which are totally in line with workers' rights. Though according to sentences issued in our case, any attempt to improving your life by using legitimate means is considered an action against the national security of the country. We fully know and admit that our activities endanger the peace of mind and security of those who benefit from illegal profiting through blatant exploitation of workers and teachers. However, we insist on challenging them and achieving what is rightfully ours. The exploiters are putting us in prison by pretending that their security is the same as the country's national security. Therefore, we declared that in protest against below poverty line wages and salaries, prohibition of right to strike, the lack of transparency by the ILO regarding the infringement of our rights by the Iranian regime, and the absence of legitimate reasons for incarnation protests, we are being an unlimited hunger strike on April 29th. So they start unlimited hunger strike since April 29th.
اول ماه می فرا میرسد. طبقه کارگر کشورهای سراسر جهان در شور و شوق برگزاری روز همبستگی جهانی کارگران به سر می‌برند. اما در ایران سرمایه‌داری جمهوری اسلامی نه تنها حق برگزاری این روز را از طبقه کارگر سلب کرده است، بلکه با استثمار و سرکوب و به غارت بردن همه تولیدات و دسترنج کارگران سفره‌های خانواده‌های کارگری را خالی‌تر می‌کند. با تصویب حداقل دستمزد پایین‌تر از خط فقر و تحمیل قانونمند ساختار اقتصاد ریاضتی به بخش اعظم در حال خیزش زحمتکشان با دو هدف مشخص: با فلج کردن معیشت کارگران از رشد کارگری جلوگیری کنند و همچنین قرار دادن نیروی کار ارزان در اختیار بخش خصوصی و سرمایه‌داران که دولت آنها را نمایندگی می‌کند. دو، در دوران پسافرجام که دولت روحانی از شرکت‌های خارجی برای سرمایه‌گذاری دعوت می‌کند، پیش زمینه‌ای را فراهم کنند که در ایران همچون چین و هند کارگر ارزان به سرمایه‌داران ارائه می‌دهید و همچنین جنبش کارگری و رهبران آن را در هم می‌کوبیم. لذا با این ترفند شناخته شده به سرمایه‌های خارجی اطمینان دهند که سرمایه‌هایشان در ایران نه تنها با هیچ خطری مواجه نیست، بلکه کارگر ارزان برای سودآوری هرچه بیشتر وجود دارد و با تبلیغات گوشخراش مداوم که اقتصاد ایران رو به رشد خواهد داشت و ایجاد این امید که کار ایجاد خواهیم کرد، جنبش کارگری را به انتظار جهت ایجاد کار و تسلیم به وضع موجود بکشاند. با به کار بردن این شیوه ها جمهوری اسلامی هم اعتماد سرمایه‌داران جهان را جلب کرده است و هم با ایجاد امید به ایجاد کار ماشین سرکوب جمهوری اسلامی را از تعرض کارگران و توده‌های مردم معترض برای مدتی در امان خواهد داشت. اما جنبش طبقه کارگر ایران بدون رهبری واحد در شرایط امنیتی ایران رشد قابلی کرده است. جنبش طبقاتی کارگران با رشد سیاسی خود آگاهند که طیف اصلاح طلب خارج از کشور، رژیم سرکوب، چپنمای راست، خانه کارگر، ضد کارگر ایران و نمایندگان غیر واقعی همچون علیرضا محجوب که به نام کارگر به بخشی از بورژوازی ایران آویزان هست، در عدم رشد این جنبش نقش برجسته ایفا می‌کنند. و حال سخنران بعدیمون رو معرفی می‌کنیم. رفیق مسعود ارژنگ. ایشون مددکار اجتماعی در داونتاون ونکوور طرف ایست ساید، چیر اند لوکال 803 BCGEU و عضو کمیته همبستگی کارگری.
Thank you. I would like to thank the organizers and UNIFOR for giving us the opportunity and have the May Day. Happy May Day, comrades. Happy May Day to all of you. Also, happy May Day to Iranian workers, Iranian activists, and also activists here in Vancouver. This is my 20th May Day in Vancouver, and I have to say that always May Day has been part of my life as an organizer and as an activist, and happy to be here tonight. I'm going to speak, Farsi and English, but I would like to say that, brothers and sisters, comrades, there are two resolutions from Iran, and these two resolutions it just shocked me when I, looked at those two resolutions from two unions, and bus drivers union, and also the syndicates of the sugarcane haftape. These two resolutions it's just as a manifesto to overthrow Islamic regime. You go through these two these resolutions. It's asking Afghanis, immigrants, to have the rights to be citizens of Iran. It happened last year, but this time it's in the resolution. It's amazing. It's asking the equality for men and women in every aspect of society. And it's amazing. It shocks me. And I think when we go back to 36-7 years ago, this is the voice of the revolution that we had, the revolution that was stolen by Ayatollahs. This is the sound of the councils that we had. And it's amazing, and I would encourage all of you to look at this resolution, and also UNIFOR to send the support to those unions. These resolutions are manifesto against Islamic regime, and I totally believe in it, and I'm supporting it all the way. I love it. The other thing that I want to talk about today, here in BC, April 28th, what's the date, April 28th? Workers in BC, what's that? Morning. Exactly, day of mourning. I think the message of the May Day one of the message is the safety for the workers. 185 workers died in this province last year, 2015, in the workplace. That has to be stopped. And this is the work that we need to do as a movement to make all those employers accountable for what they are been doing. So it is important to look at that date, and please, if you're a member of the OHS committee or any other organizations, please get to that health and safety committees and work on it. Also, last week, as an organizer, I'm new elected chair for my local, responsible for more than 4,000 workers. I was in a meeting with some new labor activists. And these people, they just made their union. They were just certified as a union. And you should have seen how happy they are. You know, after 15 years working without a contract, without a collective agreement, how happy they were. And this is the message of the May Day. No matter what, a worker now has a collective agreement that can take his employer agreed on a basis. And again, this is the message of the May Day, prosperity that we want, equality that we want, and we fight for it, and also the better life that we ask for. The International Workers' Day is a day in which we must come to the fore against the top 1%, against the banks, parasites, against the billionaire ayatollahs and their government, and to shout out loud, enough is enough. Unemployment is enough, poverty is enough, discrimination and equality is enough. The immense wealth that humans produce today, if not wasted in wars and the expenditure of the armies and the police estates and in the bank accounts of capitalists, would suffice 1,000 times over to eradicate all the problems of humanity. This is the reality of the life that we have at this time. And we can do it. We are the working class. We are the engine of the society, and we can change that. So I believe in it. So the message of May Day is prosperity, is equality, and is the better life. And I believe in it, and I think every one of us, I'm seeing so many faces here I've seen over the years. Thank you for participating. Thank you for the organizing this event tonight. And thanks. Happy May Day to all of you.
This is a message from the May Day committee in Suleymaniye and Kurdistan in Iraq. They wanted to participate in this event, and they sent this message. This is originally was in Kurdish, which I translated in English. Happy May Day, the day of solidarity of working class. Good evening, dear comrades and everyone. We, the workers of Iraq and Kurdistan, thank you for celebrating May Day, the International Workers' Day. Since last month, all workers, labor organizations, and left parties have been preparing to celebrate the International Workers' Day. Workers around the world are reminded that their struggle is not only for their class, but also for the people and their demands based on humanity and its universal rights. During the last 2 weeks, workers and activists, particularly in Kurdistan, have organized several May Day committees, and they are busy with many activities in Suleymaniye. Also, activists are organizing activities for May 1st in Erbil and Raniye. The history of workers' struggle in Iraq and Kurdistan is a great one. In fact, today war and instability has destroyed the life of people and brings dark days over workers' struggle. If we look at the past, we can see many labor protests by workers in oil sectors, strikes of millions in 60s, 70s, and 80s in Baghdad and other cities. This includes various strikes in textile firms in cities in Kurdistan. Major May 1st celebration also happened in 1994 and 1995 in Suleymania and other cities. In 2008, workers and employees had a major strike in Tasluja concrete cement firm that caused casualties when they were attacked by the police. 13 workers were wounded to achieve their demands. That was only an example of tireless of workers' struggle in Iraq. This struggle has been the beginning of hope and establishing a good foundation for the future. That is why when we celebrate May 1st, we remind ourselves that it's not easy to achieve our demands, as the history of our struggle shows both victory and defeat. Especially in the last few years, war, displacement, unemployment, and not receiving our wages for up to 3 months or more has affected people in general, and especially the working class in Iraq and Kurdistan. This situation has an involuntary negative effects on unity of the workers and their lives. Today, it's more than 2 years that the imposed war by ISIS, Daesh, also known as Islamic State, affects people's life. While I don't want to touch the cause or aims of ISIS here, I should mention that ISIS has destroyed everything, and hundreds of civilians has been victimized, and millions are displaced and seek refuge to neighboring countries and Kurdistan. Thousands of homes got destroyed, hundreds of workplaces are closed and destroyed. Based on official statistics, more than 1 million of Iraqi people have lost their jobs. More than 350,000 workers lost their jobs, and those who have a job, either their wage is not enough or they don't receive their pay at all or on time. People of Iraq and Kurdistan facing more problems. The cause of these problems are that the governments of Iraq and Kurdistan are both corrupted and have failed. They are unable to manage the situation. Both of Iraq and Kurdistan governments are worsening the situation, causing problems instead of fixing the problems. People have to struggle against the governments. It's impossible to discuss May 1st and not mention these facts. This situation directly affects working class lives. In this situation, the employees are free to fire the workers. They lower the wages and extend the hours. They create conflicts between foreign and local workers. They create racist thoughts and gender inequalities. In this unstable situation, they cultivate more profits, and there is no effective labor law to prosecute the employers. Dear audience, May 1st is the day of saying no to capitalism and showing our discontent to tyranny and injustice against workers. Workers all around the world have the same problems and demands. In short, workers' struggle is universal. Victory of workers anywhere is the victory of workers all around the world. In contrast, we can see how the capitalists are united with each other and their governments and allies to generate this situation for workers. We can see all of them get the profit. They ignore their differences. We can see they support each other. They have global summits and make global decisions. They definitely cultivate their products. In those summits, they gather around the table. They make decisions for workers to cut back on their futures. We can see that their message is about wars and their greed. Our message should be about peace and better life. Why we can't fulfill our message, while the majority of people agree and support this message for a better life? Why are capitalist messages successful? The answer is simple. They support each other and they have the same program. but the workers have not used this tool of unity effectively and more often. That's why we must have common message and must support each other. It's important to repeat this message today in May 1st celebration. All of our activities have to be supported globally by other workers. That's why we can do everything. We send our solidarity and workers' message from Iraq and Kurdistan to your May 1st celebration in Vancouver. Our message to all workers, these organizations and the left communist parties are support us, force the giant governments to stop wars and bring peace to people. You can send this message to your government on May Day. Our message is that you support each other. We hope that May Day of this year will be the year of cooperation and solidarity. One more time, thank you, and we shake your hands. Long live May Day, International Struggle Day of Working Class. Coordinators of May Day celebration in Suleimania and surrounding cities and towns around Iraq and Kurdistan. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is going to be Nathan Wood, President of UNIFOR Local 111, Chair BC Regional Council. Nathan, it was 2014, am I right? 2013. He went to Tokyo representing Canadian transit workers. And he took our message supporting Iranian workers in jail, the same as Shahrukh, same as Jarahi, the same as Reza Shabi. When he came back, he was telling me, that surprised me. You know, I was reading your messages. Most of those workers, most of those people, that was international. They knew them. They knew Shahrukh, they knew Shahabi, they knew Jarahi, everybody. They knew them by the name. And that gives me more energy to fight for workers' rights. Nathan?
My name is Nathan Woods, and thank you, Mahmoud, for the introduction. It's really humbling to stand up here and think that I'm a union leader in Canada, and the challenges that I face are so fundamentally different than what everyone around the world is experiencing. And when I was in Tokyo in 2013, the name recognition to the people that I brought attention to, it was clear that the struggles that we have like in Canada pale in comparison, and it's humbling to be a part of a movement that is still continuing to exist today. I'd just like to go to a few of the speakers that were previous to me and acknowledge Virginia's comments about women in the workplace and violence in the workplace. And at the beginning of transit, over 123 years ago, women weren't allowed to come into the workplace. In fact, as recently as 1971, the ads for transit operators still only identified that they wanted men as transit workers. So it's really incumbent of us, this term that we're in as officers, we have finally women executive in our leadership role, and it's my experience that women can be and traditionally are better as leaders and story brothers, but that's my experience, and I wish that there were more sisters in our workplace to surround us and bring their assets to the table. I'm BC Regional Chair, and I represent 30,000 workers in British Columbia as part of UNIFOR National. And I do know that Gavin McGarrigle and Joey Warnock, both leaders in British Columbia and Western Canada, bring their message of solidarity. As part of UNIFOR, we're 310,000 members strong, coast to coast to coast. And we're the largest private sector union in Canada. And with that, we bring a lot of weight into sectors that don't traditionally have representation or strong rights. I heard previously the occupational health and safety components that are there. There's hours of work, there's pay. We advocate in Canada, of course, as strong proponents of that, and are continuing to organize more sectors with 23 sectors currently in UNIFOR. We do cover virtually every component, from health to fisheries to logging to transit to healthcare, teachers. It's a pretty broad spectrum. And 3 of those women in UNIFOR National, the 3 leaders that are actually directors across Canada. In the Prairie provinces, Joey Warnock is representative. Ottawa, or Ontario, sorry, it's Kathy Fortier. And for the Atlantic provinces, it's Lana Payne. Out of the top 5 positions in UNIFOR, 3 are women, and those are elected positions. So it's for me, I'm really proud to be able to say that the leadership of our local is built on a majority of women, and the success so far of UNIFOR, which was formed in 2013, was a large part of the acknowledgement that women should be at the top. You know, it's a somber moment, and I did want to open up and say that if anybody had voted for Harper, get out. Or if anybody had voted for Christy Clark, get out. These are the governments right now that are in place that are making it very challenging for Labour in Canada to find any progressive gains. The 1%, I don't know if any of you are aware, but as a bus driver president, we recently last week had a strike vote. Working conditions are one of the top 3 key issues. And the fact that we have to bargain today in Canada for working conditions, believe it or not, we had to write into our collective agreement that we wanted washrooms with clean drinking water. Because right now we have washrooms in Canada for transit workers that don't have clean drinking water. They don't have access to washrooms even on some of the routes. So how is the struggle comparable? I mean, I look at this and I think, how is the struggle comparable to what we face in countries that are oppressive, countries that don't allow the same permission? I'm granted the legal right to represent 3,500 transit workers in Metro Vancouver, and I don't have any government oppressing me. I don't have anyone threatening my life. I live with freedom. I struggle with prosperity. I struggle with justice, and we do still struggle with the equity or equality. But you know, you can't live in a society and the challenges that are there worldwide with regard to the leadership there. I'm going to struggle with the names, but you know, I'm going to try. Mohammed Zahari, Benan Abraham Zete, and you know, for me, most important right now, an executive board of a transit union is in trouble. And I'd like to hear about the resolution that's out there to see how UNIFOR Local 111, how UNIFOR BC Regional Council, or even UNIFOR National can offer assistance and support formally to acknowledge Riza Zahabi is a brother of mine directly.
Riza Shahar.
Okay.
Shahar.
Okay. Thank you for the correction. I followed your phonetic spelling. A brother of mine doesn't have the same privilege to represent, and we have to find a way to get above and beyond that. And UNIFOR is working on that. As the largest public sector union, we do have a social justice fund, and it's one aspect of our local union that we feel responsible to communities, not only in our country, province's country, but also worldwide. And we've advocated and used that social justice fund to make sure that we can offer any assistance, whether it's not just in the form of a letter, if it's in the form of financial aid, if it's in the form of physical presence. At the International Transit Federation, which we are an affiliate to, we are able to go, it's a global organization, you've all heard of it. It's a global organization that we can engage with and advocate to. The Bill S-221 victory that we had in Ottawa was something that we've shared internationally with to try to gain the same support with transit workers around the world. It's a long and hard struggle though. It's been over 100 years since the first May Day. And in the earlier part of the 20th century, the US government tried to curb the celebration and further wipe out the public's memory by establishing law and order. And that's where friends and colleagues of ours around the world are still struggling. It's where we're struggling with prosperity, justice, and equality. And while we have freedom here, we do have freedom of speech. And I will be damned if anybody's going to be taking that away from me anytime soon. You know, I fight as a labor leader for the other three. And even then, in as developed a country as we are, to accomplish that, it's not something that we can find easy if we have to negotiate safe, clean drinking water for our members. And our members aren't even necessarily aware that we have to negotiate that. So the Social Justice Fund is used worldwide, and it is whenever there's a social injustice that UNIFOR will try its best, if called upon, and we're able to insert ourselves into either politics or into social activism, environmental, to find solutions to help us out. But we've got a problem in that, and we've got a government in Canada and in our province here that are so far right-thinking that and the challenges that we faced, and I'm talking not today's current federal government, I'm talking about the Harper government that's screwed us over for the last 10 or more years. That type of dictatorship, and as far as I'm concerned, the way that man operated his country was shameful, and it's no different than how we see the threat of a Donald Trump victory down in the States. Can you imagine if this guy gets in, what will happen to the United States of America? Can you imagine how many people would be swarming to come up into Canada to get out of that country, or back down south? You know, his racist comments towards Mexicans is so, I just can't even fathom a guy having the freedom to be able to say that. There are rights, there's basic human rights here. And living without borders, living free of government constraint is the biggest and most important thing that anyone could think of. The 1% are not and should not be allowed to win. In our local union, we had 98% strike vote to get better working conditions. We were there's 1% of our membership that said no compared to the whole 99% of society. But if we've got a 98% strike vote to say no, that we want improvements to wages, we want improvements to working conditions, we want improvement to benefits, the rest of Canada should be doing the same thing. The rest of North America should be doing the same thing. And the rest of the world should have the freedom and right to do the same thing without fear of being jailed, without fear of being injured, and certainly without fear of being murdered. All the rights are people's rights. And I will say a message from the ITF. Speaking on Workers' Memorial Day, the ITF President Patty Crumlin said, "Workers and their unions come together not just to remember the injured and dead, but also to fight for the living. That fight is renewed every working day and will be until every workplace is a safe one, and every worker who sets out for work makes it home at the end of the day." I wish that were true. He concluded, "As we always say, we must remember the dead and fight like hell for the living." The ITF General Secretary Steve Cotton has said, "Far too many workers are still dying in preventable accidents. Transport workers run a daily gamut of risk on land and at sea and air. We are dedicated to putting in place the conditions and standards that protect them. Unions are at the forefront of this struggle and in proposing new models of working, such as safe rates, to win." I commend, when I first met Mahmoud, I thought he was a little too radical for me. And over the years that I've known him, I've identified more and more with him. And I'm definitely empathetic to the struggles that are out there, and I'm, as a leader, proud to have him as a member, pushing me just to push more for more gains. Any gain that we make here, and brother, you know this as well as I do, any gain that we make here, we try our best to bring everybody else up to this level. And that is what we will, UNIFOR will continue to do. And I know I'll work with every BC Fed affiliate, every CLC affiliate, every ITF affiliate I can to make those gains available for everybody. So happy May Day. I never really enjoy saying happy May Day because there's just no happiness in having to fight for all of that. So May Day.
Our next speaker is going to be Eric Mastro. She's a member of Migrant BC and also BC and also Canada Filipino Society for Human Rights.
I am representing Migrante BC, which is the Filipino organization, a grassroots community organization of Filipino migrants and immigrants. I'm also speaking on behalf of the Canada-Philippines Solidarity for Human Rights. Both organizations are members of the International League of People's Struggle. We raise our clenched fists to salute the workers and peoples of the world celebrating 130 years of International Workers' Day. And I like this sign. Labor Day symbolizes all the victories and struggles of workers against capitalist domination, oppression, and exploitation. As an immigrant to Canada, I was not very happy to know that Labor Day wasn't May 1st, but was in September. I couldn't bring my mind around why is it in September. Most countries in the world, mine included, have this as a holiday, and thousands of workers march on the streets on that day. Also, thousands of military also are on hand to watch the Workers' May Day. I'd like to think that on this day, more than any other day of the year, we remember and celebrate the victories of the labor movement in fighting for things that I think are normally taken for granted. The 8-hour workday, higher wages, better working conditions, the right to organize. On this day, more than any other day of the year, we pay tribute to the pioneers and martyrs of the labor movement, men and women workers. And we draw inspiration from their commitment, their courage, and their perseverance as we seek to expand and strengthen the working class movement. 130 years is a long time, and Tammy mentioned the protest in the Haymarket Square in Chicago, where tens of thousands of workers walked off their jobs, marched into the streets, called for strikes, and were brutally dispersed by police and the military and were arrested. But history teaches us a lot of lessons. One is that the capitalists will not recognize the role of workers in production. They will not recognize their basic needs and their dignity, but will recognize their greed for profits. We also learn that governments serve the capitalist class and big business interests and will use the state machinery to uphold capitalist interests. Against this backdrop, workers more than ever are uniting and fighting in order to attain victories in improving their working and living conditions, especially in the context of the worsening economic crisis, which have led to the deterioration of the situation of workers everywhere. Workers rally against neoliberal policies. It's such a big word, but it essentially means policies that favor free trade, privatization, lower taxes for big corporations and the elite, the use of migrant or guest labor. Neoliberal policies also means reduced social services like housing, health, education, and environmental concerns. Here in BC, we highlight the issue of migrant workers, caregivers, temporary foreign workers, seasonal agricultural workers. We highlight their precarious state and their disposability. They're here for 4 years, and they have to leave after 4 years, and they can't come back until after 4 years. We support and work for the Fight for 15 minimum wage, which is a campaign for low-wage workers. We oppose privatization of the public sector and have seen the effects of what this brings. In BC, we are seeing that the labor movement is not a movement of Canadian workers alone. It is a movement for all workers in BC, in Canada, whether they are migrant workers, whether they are foreign, whether they are casual. We must not allow reactionary forces to pit migrant workers against Canadian workers. Workers and unions everywhere must link their struggles to one another and to a broader resistance against capitalism, neoliberalism, and of course, the consequent imperialist wars and state terror. The gains and victories of the sector of workers anywhere are the gains and victories of all working people. Only the struggle against capitalism, against imperialism, and for socialism will truly end capitalist crisis and wars. And I like the banner behind me. And only that struggle will liberate peoples from exploitation and oppression and realize for all of us greater freedom, democracy, prosperity, social justice, and lasting peace. There is also a march tomorrow, May Day, starting at 1:30 at
14 and we have the park.
Yes, that park. And we'll march up to Grandview Park. And I think this was something that in my community we always wanted. Let's march, let's go out into the streets, proclaim May Day, let's claim back May Day as a day for workers. And I think doing this every year, whether it's in a forum like this, whether doing the march, I think that sends a signal, yet this is our day, do not make it in September. Which is a completely rewriting of history. I also want to say that on behalf of our organizations, I also belong to the Canadian Union of Public Employees, Local 391, which is the Union of Library Workers. So long live the workers of the world, long live International Workers' Day.
Good evening, everyone. First, happy May Day. Second, this short poem in Kurdish language, most of you may not understand what my poem is talking about, but I would like to let you know that this poem belongs to working class struggle against capitalism. Sadusi ayar amro, وياري 2016. Sadusi sala, her heman dengum, her heman rengum, hawari heman, gerui talgertum, هر لآسمانی خبات و شورش راپەڕینەکان هەمان باڵندەی حەزی باڵگرتووم فرمێسکی چاوی هەر ئەو منداڵم 130 ساڵە شەقام بەرنادا ئومێدی دڵی ئەو کرێکارم لەوەتەی هەیە مەینەتی وستەم هەژاری و حەسرەت یەخەی بەرنادا هەر لە بوونمەوە دەستێکم کارە و خەریکی بەرهەم دەستەکەی ترم بۆ ساڕێژکردنی دەرد و مەینەتی و زامەکانی ژین پڕە لە مەرهەم 130 ساڵە من مانیفێستم لە نێو دڵناوە جەستەم زامدارە و سرودی خەبات کەیفساز و خۆش 130 ساڵە ڕێگام 130 ساڵە ئاهەنگی ڕێگام بەرەو لووتکەی بەرز تا بڵێ بە جۆش هەر لە بوونمەوە بۆرژوای زۆردار دڵگیرتر دەکات ڕەنگیرتر دەکات زنجیری دەستم بەژاری ئاین هەستی نیشتیمان بە مڵکایەتی و پیرۆزی خێزان هەلا بە هەلاو لەت دەکات خەون و مەبەستم لەو ڕۆژەوەی هەم قەفەسەی سیگم تەنگ و هەناسەم سوار و تاسێنراو سەرمایەش بۆتە مێردەزمەی ژین و لە بۆ ئارامیم بۆم بێکە و چێنراو هەر لە بوونمەوە چوار لەم ئاگرە و ژیان تەندورە و دۆزەخە بوونم بۆیە لام ڕوونە یەک گرتو نەبم یەکێتیم نەبێ لەم جەهەنەمە قورسە دەرچوونم 130 ساڵە وێنەی شیکاگۆم بە سینگەوەیە و قوربانیەکانی ماچ دەکەم یەک یەک باوەشیان دەنێم هەڵدەگرم نازیان سەریان دەخەمە سەرڕانی مێژوو گوێ دەگرم لە بۆ سکاڵا و ڕازیان 130 ساڵە بە گەنجی ماوم پیری ناناسم باکات بێ و بڕوە ئاخر نۆشیومە شەرابی ئومێد مەمەزەی ئاڵی باوەڕ و بڕوە 130 ساڵی تریش پێ نەگا بەری تەقەلا و ڕەنج و تێکۆشان مارکس ڕابرمە و شەقام نیشتیمان خەباتیش هەمان هاوڕێکەی جاران 130 ساڵە 130 سڵاو لە ئێمەی کارگەر ئێمەی مەینەت چێژ بۆ سۆشیالیزم و دنیای یەکسانی دەبین بە ئاواز هەموو دەبینە زاری سرود بێژ. Thank you.
پیام‌هایی داریم از ایران، از تشکل‌های متفاوتی از ایران. صدا میاد؟ پیام و فراخوان‌هایی هست از کارگران پروژه‌های پارس جنوبی، جمعی از کارگران پتروشیمی‌ها منطقه ماهشهر و بندر ما، فعالین کارگری جنوب، جمعی از کارگران محور تهران، کرج و فعالان کارگری شوش، اندیمشک و فراخوان ضمن برشمردن معضلات کارگری و تأکید بر اینکه این درد مشترک هرگز جدا جدا درمان نمی شود. چیزای جالبی رو خواستم از داخل ایران، بخشیش رو براتون میخونم. این درد مشترک هرگز جدا جدا درمان نمی شود. خواست مزد 3.5 میلیون تومانی را طرح کردند و نوشتند که روز اول ماه می را با تبادل نظر و تشریک مساعی خود به آغاز مبارزه مصمم برای ایجاد تشکل توده‌ای مستقل طبقاتی خود، مبارزه مصمم برای آزادی کارگران و فعالین کارگری، معلمان زندانی و همه زندانیان سیاسی از زندانهای رژیم اسلامی، مبارزه مصمم با اخراج و بیکارسازی کارگران، مبارزه مصمم برای حق بیمه بیکاری، مبارزه مصمم برای آزادی اعتصاب و اعتراض و مزد برابر برای زنان و مردان کارگر، زنان و مردان کارگر. مبارزه مصمم برای برابری حقوق اجتماعی زن و مرد در جامعه و حمایت از کارگران مهاجر و تبدیل کنیم این خواستهای بدون عمل مشارکت همه کارگران و حمایت دیگر زحمتکشان به پیروزی نخواهد رسید. خیلی متشکرم از حضورتون و از رفیق عزیزمون عباس ماندگار. عباس عزیز، شما 3 دقیقه بخورید ممنونی و بعد از اینکه که عباس عزیز صحبتشون تموم شد بریک اعلام میکنم.
من فکر میکنم 1 دقیقه کافیه. I think 1 minute is good. I just wanted to thank my co-workers from the TransLink and UNIFOR. I'm also a proud member of UNIFOR from Victoria. It was I got energized listening to sister and brother from UNIFOR. And the only thing I want to say here is that I am really proud of the labor leaders, the teacher leaders, and the labor leaders that from the prison under the pressure of the Islamic Republic, under the danger of execution, anything, torture, they issued a statement from there, and I just wanted to show the pictures to you folks that you know who they are to recognize them. There is Ismail Abdi, the representative of the Teachers Union on my left, and Jafar Azimzadeh. They jointly issued a statement that actually ignited a massive movement of the May Day this year all over. I hope that you remember these faces, and also Behnam Ibrahimzadeh, a child labor activist who defends the child labor in Iran, and he's been in jail for a long time. Freedom. Yesterday I heard that Rasul Budaghi, also a teacher labor, was freed from the prison. I hope that we see them free. We should force to free them. Thank you very much to you folks in Iran.